we're going to bring up the first performer, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, coming to the stage, show your love for Mr. Bobby Blackwell.
I got a story to tell. But before I get to it, I got a confession. I've been holding on to something for so long. And this being June and everything, I feel like it's as good a time as ever to set myself free. I am in love with a man. I don't remember exactly the first time I ever felt those feelings, but I do want y'all to know that as awkward as it is for you to hear this, I'm at peace. I remember my first time seeing him. It's about my height, chocolate brown skin, medium brown eyes, and when the sun sparkled on him, they just lit up with a glow. I even remember the way he smelled and his voice. I hear that voice in my head today, each and every day. But he smelled really, really good. He smelled kind of like just the right mix of musk, patchouli, and sandalwood. I later found out that smell was nuts and bolts from Avon. You know, back when women used to wear splash on jean and tank, guys used to put on a little nuts and bolts. But I remember him so well. He had big hands and big feet. Y'all know what they say about men with big feet. I used to watch him. I used to stand in the window and watch him walk up the street. And he always walked like he was going somewhere important. Just the right amount of pop in his step. He used to have a towel around his shoulder. Over his shoulder, and glasses on to block the glare of the summer sun. And I would just watch him as he walked away, all the way up to the top of the street until I couldn't see him anymore. All I knew is I couldn't wait to be with him again. This man just affected me in such a way that I couldn't wait to hold him. And as comfortable as I was with the feeling that I had inside, it left more questions than answers. It's like, should I feel this way? Should I feel this way about a man? And what happens if somebody were to ever found out what was inside of me? And that's when I turned to my mother and I said, Mom, where's Dad going? And she wouldn't even look up. She would just bounce my little sister Jody on her knee as she flipped through the A&P insert looking for the sales. She would say, Mom, your dad is going to work. I'm like, work? What is work? I don't know what work is, but whatever work is, I couldn't wait for him to get back from work. Because when he got back from work, I knew he was going to take me somewhere. Because my dad took me everywhere. He took me uptown, he took me downtown, over to the east side, to the west side. He used to take me down to Lexington Market. He would eat clams. I would eat oysters. I damn near choked on an oyster one time. He had me dangling by my feet till that oyster came out. But I'm still eating oysters to this day. We used to go down to the fish market right? Some of y'all know the fish market is Port Discovery. Some of y'all know it as a club. They used to have like 4, 5, 6 clubs inside. But I know it as the fish market. It was an open air fish market. Had seafood and had fish of every kind. Sometimes we didn't have to go downtown to the fish market because the Muslim brothers would bring it uptown. They would come on uptown. The Muslim brothers would have bean pies and fish. The Arabs would be right along with them. They would have fruit and vegetables. And you could take a bag and fill up that bag with as much fruits and vegetables as you wanted to for $5 and feed the family for the whole week. One of the other places I used to love was my father would take me down a corned beef road. And he used to order, say my dad loved sandwiches. He used to order sandwiches. Say, man, can I have a corned beef sandwich on rye, a little bit of spicy mustard, and some extra onions on the side. And he'd always get a few extra pickles because he know I love pickles. I used to love hanging out with my dad. One of my favorite things to do with my dad, though, was to ride around with him and his buddies, his cats, in his 1965 Chevy Impala. It was Mr. Bird. They called him Sparrow because of his last name. They called him Mr. Sparrow. They called him Bird because his last name was Sparrow. There was Karimba Abu Jabril. He was the spirit. Most of y'all know him as Abu the flute maker. He's known me all my life. Then it was my Uncle Kurt. He was the coolest cat walking. You couldn't tell him nothing. He was the epitome of cool. Later on, there came Skeeter. He always had a book in his hand, Mr. Sturdivant. He was the philosopher. Then there was my mother's oldest brother, my Uncle Jerome, Korean War veteran. He was our family's Gordon Parks. And then there was Buffalo, Mr. Andre. He worked big strapping duty. He worked over at the penitentiary. That's where I got one of my names from. Actually, they used to call me Huckleberry Hound, or they would call me Headquarters. Mr. Andre would look at me and he'd go, John, that boy got a big head. It's going to take him a couple years to grow into that head. And we would laugh and we would laugh, man. It was just always something. These guys, man, they would talk about Black history and going back to the motherland. And just like the song from Earth, Wind, and Fire, they would talk about science and mysticism and world religion and so forth. You dig? I felt like I was official, like I was a child of the struggle. I was down by law. Man, listen, the first time I ever heard men talk about getting some was around these cats. They thought they were talking in code. I knew what they were saying. It was always fun. My dad took me everywhere, but he was always there with me. He was there with me, he was there for me, and he was always teaching me. And that voice that raised me, it's in my head. Every time that I come up against something that is bothering me, I hear his voice in my head. He would always teach us. He would always prepare me and my siblings for what was to come. He'd be like, son, your mother and I aren't going to be here forever. He was preparing us for that sorrow that he knew we would have to deal with one day, if we outlived them. He would say to me, man, choose your mate wisely, because after all the screwing and after all the novelty wears off, you're going to need somebody that can stick with you through thick and thin. You need a friend. You need somebody that's going to be there with you. And then he would say, listen, Jack, stay close to young people, because that's how you're going to know what's next. Always teaching lessons. But one of the lessons sticks with me, and I live with it to this day. We were downstairs in the basement next to the furnace. I had no idea how every time he had a serious lesson to tell me, it was downstairs in the basement next to the furnace. But he pulled up a chair and he looked me in my eyes and he said, son, never trust a white man. And that blew my mind. I never heard anything like this come out of my dad's mouth before. You see, by this time, we had moved uptown to Forest Park, mixed neighborhood. It's kind of like the Little Rascals and Brady Bunch, kind of all mixed up. We played all types of music in our house. Rock, gospel, classical. We played all the musicals. And my parents, there was never an off-color joke told in my house. I never heard anything like that. And my parents, listen, they didn't even cuss. That's not to say they didn't know how to cuss, because I heard a few words here and there. But they chose their words wisely around us. But they say the first cut is the deepest. 1977. I was 11 going on 12 over at Herringburn Park. I could still smell the grass. I could still see the sun coming up as we went over there. It was a Tom McCann pitch, hit, and run competition. My dad was always entering me into competitions and see who could throw the fastest, who could hit the ball the farthest, and who could run around the bases the fastest. I was on fire that day. By the end of the competition, people were coming over to me, congratulating me, looking at my dad. Your son did really well. But when it was time to call the winner, they didn't call my name. They called some white kid that we hadn't seen all day. Hadn't even heard his name. I was deflated. I saw this fury in my dad's eyes that I had never seen before. This helpless fury. It reminds me of Denzel Washington in Training Day. He was just boiling inside. He's like, you motherfuckers! Y'all gonna do this to my son? Okay. I'm gonna go berserk in here. I'm gonna go crazy with all you crackers. And he put his arm around me and we walked to the parking lot. I'm crying and I'm welling up with tears because I'd never seen my father like this. Never. And just as we hit the parking lot about to get in our car, this white father walked over to us and he said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Because he knew what they did on that day. There was no way on that day that this black boy was going to win that competition in a sea of white boys. And I carry that with me to this day. My father said, son, hold your head up. You did well. You did your best. Always do your best. But you remember that this monster will rear its head over and over and over and over again for the rest of your life. And I want you to be ready for it. And as the notorious B.I.G. would say, singer ain't lie. But you know what else? Y'all know what they say. Don't no one monkey stop no show. Because we had Saturdays. And on Saturdays in the Blackwell house, it was off the hook. My father had to work early on Saturdays, so he wasn't there in the daytime. But my mother, she would get behind that 1975 Ford Country Squire station wagon, and she would take us all over the city. My sisters would grab their ballet slippers and their toe shoes, and they were off to Marie Ellen Watts School of Dance to take ballet. And then she'd run my brother over to Forest Park Little League so he could go to practice. And then she'd drive me all the way across town so I can go fencing at Tri-Rapid Fencing Club at Johns Hopkins. By that time, my dad was off from work, so he would pick me up from practice, and we'd stop by Green Spring Dairy. I'd get a little tasty cake pie and some milk as our tradition. Sometimes when we didn't have a lot to do, we'd just run down the end of the block to the golf course. We would caddy, or we would learn some golf skills at Jimmy Flattery Pee Wee League. And in the winter, they drive us clear across town to Memorial Stadium so we can go ice skating. It was always fun, always something to do. And my father was the life of the party. My parents would come home some nights from a cabaret. Y'all know cabarets. BYOB. They have setups so you can mix your drinks. People would bring their own food. They'd hit the door. My mother would run to the crib to check on my brother. And then my father would come to our room, waking us up. He'd be like, get up, son. Get up, son. I boogied him down. I boogied him, boogied him, boogied him, boogied him, boogied him. He'd do that Uncle John. He'd do it. Hawkeye Strut ain't got nothing on Uncle John. He'd do Uncle John. I boogied him, son. Your mom got tired, I went and got your Aunt Mary. Your Aunt Mary got tired, I went and got your Aunt B. They can't handle me, son. I boogied him, boogied him, boogied him, boogied him, boogied him, boogied him. And then my mom in the background, she don't need them boys alone. I got you, son, I got you, son. I was just too much. I was too much for him. My father was a nut. But don't get it twisted. He was the man of the house. He didn't wield that belt much, but he would talk to you for 2 or 3 hours till you wish he gave you the whipping and forget to talk. My mother handled the books, and my father was the man of the house. But he made it clear that the buck stopped with my mother. He held her in the highest of esteem. They were a united front. They never challenged each other in front of us. They were always in support of one another, inside and outside of the house. Always. I revere my father for that because, you know, my mother, all 4'11" of her, he called her low. She was 4'11". She was so low to the ground, he called her low. That's his nickname for her, right? But it was just one of those things where you knew that even though he was the head of the household, if we asked my father something, he said, go ask your mother. Or that famous saying, son, were it not for your mother, such and such and such and such. And I love that about him. My father, the teacher, he was always there, giving of himself. Giving of his time, teaching young men, teaching young women, mentoring. And as great of a man as he is, what's crazy is he didn't even have a father. He didn't grow up with a father. So he was determined to be the best father any man could be. You understand? My father was always giving of himself. And when I think, there's a gospel song that I think of, and one of the lines go, I give myself away so you can use me. That's my father. Times have changed. He's a little older now. He's about to be 82. My mom's about to be 83. No, my mom's about to be 83. My father's going to be 82 a few months later. He always calls her a cougar. She's a few months older than that, right? And so things change, you know? Your memory comes and goes, right? But the vibrancy, his essence, the fun, the stories, the jokes, it's all still there. And it amazes me how much we're alike. I have his skin tone. I have his eyes. His is a little more pretty than mine, but I have his eyes. I have his teeth. God, some of it's cool, but you know, go with it. I am my father's son. I am his namesake. I am John Robert Blackwell Jr. And I'm still in love with that man. Yeah, stand
for y'all one more time. And his beautiful parents. Bobby started kind of shaky, didn't he? I was like, my brother's over here like, man, go ahead with the gay shit, man. They were trying to decide if they still was gonna stay or not. Like, man, I ain't know this was the buck. That's what happened when you put Father's Day in the same month as Pride. See, that's what happened. You put them two in the same month.